And now we turn to the latest on the Trump-Starmer meeting held at President Trump's Turnberry Golf Resort in Scotland. Joining us there is Greg Swenson, the chair of Republicans Overseas, who was on the ground. Greg, thanks for joining us. This was a monumental meeting. It's Trump's second state visit to the UK. How happy was President Trump to return to his mother's homeland?
Yeah, I think he was thrilled. He's very fond of the United Kingdom in general, but specifically of Scotland. He has two properties there. His mother is from there. So, this was a really great moment for the president. And I think he really enjoyed the trip so far anyway, especially up in Turnberry.
Turnberry does have a special place in his heart. We know that golf is a huge part of his life as well. He finds it very cathartic. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he's famously teetotal. Is this his, I suppose, this is his outlet, isn't it, golf?
Yeah, definitely, Michal. I mean, I saw him finish out his round on Sunday. So we kind of just stood at the 18th green, and you could just tell he really enjoys it. He takes it quite seriously, but I think he also uses it as a social vehicle and a diplomatic vehicle. And so, he really enjoys it out there. And I think it's a time where, people can get one-on-one time with the president. And very similar to, what I've noticed about having a career here in America on Wall Street, where, golf is a big part of finance. It's a big part of business in general here in the States. So, and not unusual for a president to embrace golf. And I think most of U.S. presidents have, but I think it's particularly important to President Trump.
And as you stated, he just opened a second golf club in Aberdeenshire. He doesn't show any signs of slowing down. How much are his sons involved in the carrying on of the Trump brand?
Oh, 100%. I mean, especially Eric Trump, who is basically running the business. I think Don Jr. is quite involved still. But Eric has done a great job running the business in his father's absence, and he'll continue to do that. So yeah, it's an important part of the economy as well, and good for the Trump organization for injecting capital, for creating jobs in Scotland. And I talked to a lot of the people working at Turnberry. They all absolutely love the family and love working for the Trump organization. It's nice to see.
And you were there on the ground. How was the reception between Team Trump and that of Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK?
Yeah, so I left before the Prime Minister arrived, but I did watch the entire press conference. I was switching planes in Dublin and did some media from the airport. And so I did watch the conference, and it was just amazing how it actually looked like President Trump was welcoming Keir Starmer to his country, hosting the prime minister at his resort. Turnberry is pretty spectacular. And the energy there on Sunday, I was there most of the day, Sunday and Sunday night. The energy there was just incredible. So it's not just President Trump. It's also, his team. There were a few cabinet members at the club. Stephen Miller was there, but also some cabinet secretaries, like the Secretary of Commerce was there. So it's a real energy. It's a real display of energy in Scotland, and I think everyone had a great time.
And what's your assessment of Trump's and Starmer's personal relationship?
It's really a good one, and it's a good question, Michal, because they're obviously on opposite ends of the political spectrum, so you wouldn't expect that. But I think both President Trump and the Prime Minister have done a good job, kind of rising above the politics and developing a really good relationship. I think Keir Starmer's done a great job managing the relationship. The president has been nothing but diplomatic and friendly to him, and you saw to his wife during the press conference. And I think Peter Mandelson in Washington has done a good job. The UK ambassador to the US has done a great job with the relationship. So it's obviously an important ally for the US, both economically and in terms of defense and security. So I think both are going to rise above any political differences, and then occasionally politely mention some things they disagree on. And you saw the president do that regarding the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. He talked about the tax on farmers right now, the inheritance tax on farmers, which I think the president, strongly disagrees with. And he and J.D. Vance, the vice president, have brought up, some of the freedom of speech and censorship issues over the last 6 months. So, they're able to overcome some differences of opinion and just keep the relationship going, and not only the personal relationship, but I think the relationship between the two countries.
And someone he has a bit of a frostier relationship with. He was also visited by the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, where, of course, it was Trump's favorite word. I'm sure it was on the agenda, and that's tariffs. What was the feeling on the ground as she arrived and as they went into that meeting?
Yeah, again, just total optimism. I think I know I met with a few people that were in the meeting, and as well as in the press conference, and there was a real energy, some real optimism. Remember, they didn't announce the trade deal until after the meeting and after the press conference. They said it was 50-50. I didn't really believe that because I don't think they would have teased the audience with that if they didn't have every intention of announcing it. So, good for the president. It was a great deal for the United States. I think it shows that the president is dead serious about our European allies, especially our NATO allies, sharing some of the burden, and you saw some really good outcomes from that meeting. And again, just like with the Prime Minister of the UK, I think the president has some real ideological and political differences with Ursula von der Leyen, and was able to overcome them to get a deal done. And the president's not a big fan of the EU. He's not a big fan of multilateral organizations in general, and he prefers bilateral trade agreements. But I do think he executed a great deal with the U.S., the largest trading partner of the United States. So good for the president. I think it was a great outcome from Turnberry.
And something he's also not a big fan on, and that's big fans. He spoke extensively about his hate of wind turbines. How did that go down?
It went down really well because the president, always uses some good humor in some of his arguments. He referred to them as windmills instead of wind farms or wind turbines. So, making light of it a little bit. But no, I think that's pretty consistent with U.S. energy policy right now. The president's managed to get rid of all the subsidies for wind and solar, or at least a lot of them, not all of them. But he's really sort of done away with a lot of this net zero nonsense, which never really was popular in the U.S., much more popular in Europe, obviously, but it never really became a big issue in the U.S. It never cracked the top 5 in terms of issues that were important to voters. But the Biden administration went ahead with a lot of that nonsense anyway. And I think that was just another example of being tone deaf and not listening to the people, to the voters. So I think, you've seen what happened with net zero policy in Germany when they were completely dependent on very inconsistent wind and solar, as well as Russian natural gas imports. And you saw what they went through a few winters ago. And then in the UK, where UK businesses are paying 5 times the amount for energy, 5 times more than U.S. companies pay. And even in the UK, they're paying 40% more than German companies pay. So it's really unsustainable. And I think it's one of those things where President Trump was quite critical of the UK policy and talking about the windmills. But I think it's because he wants what's best for the UK. He wants to renew that economic vigor that the UK used to have. And so I think he's looking out for the best interests of his allies. That's why he wants a stronger NATO. And that's why he wants energy policy that these countries, and especially the people and businesses in those countries, can benefit from. Remember, 20 years ago, in 2005, the United Kingdom was energy independent, if you can believe that.
It's certainly not that way anymore. It is rather unusual that a US president is there to speak so heartedly on the domestic policy of a foreign ally. Is this something that he must be getting his news. He's obviously focusing on this. He really cares about this, doesn't he?
He really does. Yeah, it's a great point. And again, I think, he wants what's best for our closest allies, for the allies and trading partners of the United States. So if he sees things if he sees things going terribly wrong in a country, I think he cares enough about those countries. Yes, there's some self-interest there. We want our allies to be strong. We want NATO to pay their fair share. So there is some self-interest. He is transactional, but on the other hand, he is, as I said, he's very fond of the UK, and he wants what's best for the people in the United Kingdom and the other countries in Western Europe as well. So, I think he's quite right to bring up some of these points. And again, the policies are often quite in contrast to the best interests of the people. The people are putting the number one issues as mass migration or illegal migration and the cost of living. And yet all you hear from the government is, censorship of so-called misinformation and continuation of destructive net zero policies. So, I think that's something the president has every right to discuss with his trading partners.
Agreed. And just finally, Greg, are you a golf player yourself?
Not a good one. In spite of working on Wall Street for my whole life, and I'm probably the only one who's never cracked 100, or the only one at Turnberry on Sunday that has never cracked 100. So, very important to American business and to the president, but not really my game.
Have you played with the president?
I have not. No.
Not yet.
No. Yeah. Someday, I hope.
There's been a video doing the rounds on social media. I think Trump was getting a bit of unfair criticism. There was a video of a caddy. He dropped a ball, and obviously Trump is 80, and he's on his own course. He's not playing at the Masters. What was your opinion of that video?
Yeah, I thought that was a little much. I mean, look, these people will do anything they can to criticize the president. And then when you look at his track record in just 6 months, he's just accomplished so much. So if you're going to try to nail him on putting a golf ball in the wrong place, good luck with that. I think the voters don't really care.
Greg Swenson, the chair of Republicans Overseas, thanks so much for your time.